Doch, das ist schon gut.
Die Premiere bei der Berlinale Superpower, ein Film von Sean Penn hier als Berlinale Special Gala, ein Film, an den er vor einem Jahr begonnen hat in der Ukraine. Er wollte noch einen Dokumentarfilm drehen über Zelensky, dann aber brach der Krieg aus, die russische Aggression. Und ihm war natürlich sofort klar, ich muss jetzt einen ganz anderen Film drehen, als den ich hier gehabt hatte. Er fällt zu den Geflüchteten, er ehrt das Kämpfen von dort und er befragt sich aber auch ganz kritisch selbst, warum habe ich und viele andere so lange die Augen vor dem verschlossen, was sich dort zusammenbaut. Superpower ohne Frage ein Höhepunkt dieses Festivals und dies ist die Pressekonferenz dazu.
Entschuldigen Sie, den Herrn da? Ja, ja. Jetzt noch nicht, ne? Weißt du? Hinsetzen.
Please take your seats. Thank you. We're about to begin. Good morning, everybody. Last night, we had a world premiere of a film most important to our festival. It's screening in Berlinale Special. It is called Superpower. You all saw it. Let me introduce the people behind the film. From your left, Danny Gabay, Lauren Turk, Billy Smith, producers. It is a co-production of Vice Studio LA and Fifth Season. And last but not least, the two co-directors of the film Superpower, Aaron Kaufman on my right, and Mr. Sean Penn. Please welcome. Not only did we have a world premiere, you also agreed, and we were super grateful for that, on a Q&A. We had nearly 20 minutes of talking, and I think I would like to pick up one question that remained, of course, and remains most important to you that I know, and to us. Can you say a word on your protagonist, your main protagonist of the film? The President of Ukraine, Mr. Zelensky, your relationship and his role in world politics today. Who wants to start?
I think that for us, Zelensky has been started out as a fascination, and as time has gone on, I don't think we ever anticipated he would become the person that he's become. We certainly saw him as a David versus Goliath character, in that he had a big job ahead of him. He had the impending conflict in the East. But I think much like the David and Goliath story, he's proved to be very nimble, and he's proved to be much more wily than the kind of older Goliath that Putin has become. And so I think for that, our David and Goliath story, the intent to be changed, but it's still very much the same story.
We need a microphone in the first row here, but then we'll start with you, please.
Hello.
Introduce yourself shortly.
Hello, my name is Olga. I'm from Ukrainian magazine cineast. First of all, thank you so much for having this room here. Thanks for showing Ukraine to the world in terms of real situation. And my question is to Sean Penn. During the film, you drink a lot, and there was a question like, how often did you drink, and what did you drink, and in general, did it help you to cope with all the stress in Ukraine? Because I understand that it may be stressful to be in Ukraine during this war. Thank you.
I maintained that my general pattern that it had nothing to do particularly with film.
My name is Ahmed Ali, Egyptian journalist. You communicated with different parties about the point of view Ukraine vision. Have you tried to communicate with the Russian side, especially Mr. Putin, and do you accept to do another film about this vision?
No. It was very early, quite clear to us that we were not going to let our film be a podium for transparent deception, and that's all that Mr. Putin and the Russian Federation had to offer. I think we would have been better served talking to a wall. This is not an unbiased film. This is not an ambiguous war. Mr. Putin said far too much already.
Hi, my name is Irina. I'm a Ukrainian journalist. Sean, in 2024, before the next Oscars, you called on the film community to give President Zelensky the opportunity to speak at the ceremony. You promised to me about your Oscar if this didn't happen. Zelensky didn't speak at last year's Oscars. You have brought one Oscar to Ukraine and will take it back only after me. How many more statues do you need to bring to Ukraine, and how many threads of their discussion do you need to make it to get more tanks and plans for Ukraine? How do you feel?
Thank you.
The Oscar is there in his office, and it's ready to be melted anytime he wants to melt it. This was overcovered, a small gesture, symbolic between two friends. In terms of what inspired that, it was my continuing shame towards the leadership of the Academy, the Motion Picture Academy, and choosing to present Will Smith smacking Chris Rock rather than the greatest symbol of cinema and humanity living today on their broadcast, their loss.
Hello, I'm from Georgia, and my country, 20% of my country is occupied by Russia. And some years ago I was pregnant when the Russian bombs were falling down, and this is not easy, but now it's very easy to share feelings from Ukrainian people and share your feelings when you were there. My question is about your decision, because we remember that you were in Haiti also, when earthquake very huge and many times. When you decide the first time, when you feel inside you, when only acting is not enough for a person and you can do much more. if you can share this moment. Thank you.
Well, as we've heard so many times in Ukraine, and I think we all understand this here at the Berlinale, is that art does have a significant role to play in building freedom and executing freedom. And so, really, my life experience with this is that I don't really differentiate between those parts of the way in which I hope to stand beside people who are fighting for freedom.
Mr. Penn, thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing this movie. I'm Vivian Hackridge from Dreisat Kulturzeit. I would like to know your personal opinion. Do you think Ukraine should become a member of NATO immediately? And second question, as a Hollywood star shooting at front lines in Ukraine and talking to the president, how are you part of war propaganda?
Well, it seems very clear that the word propaganda can be used, as a disparagement. What I would say as part of showing the truth of Ukraine's absolute unity in pursuing all those things that without which life is not worth living, then I'm very happy to be considered a propagandist, and I'd like to. We made a very unapologetically biased film because that was the true story we found.
I would also say that the movie was never meant to be the definitive, history of Ukraine. There's so much more to the history of Ukraine, which is wonderful and worth researching. It was never going to be the definitive movie about war or about Russia. It was really our experience, having not really been very well educated about Ukraine, not really fully understanding the texture of what had come before this, what were the things that led up to this. We had a very shallow, United States focused view of the region. So what our movie became was our journey to find those truths. So I don't, as far as propaganda or not propaganda, I don't even know how to answer that, because to us, the movie that's up there that's true is our movie of what we encountered and our experiences going over there.
So in a sense, we were trying to humbly offer people a piggyback ride along the journey we took.
And NATO?
Well, here's the thing. The complications of the NATO agreements, partnerships that need to play a role, the sensitivity to it at this moment. I can't speak for the Ukrainian government on that. I can only say that whether or not in NATO, these are circumstances that demand that they be considered and resourced with everything they are requiring. In this case, they are not requiring NATO troops. They are requiring the material support that we would give any effort of defending this invaded country and this invaded people. I think that the issue is hardware.
Hello, it's Natalia Zhuk from Ukrainian Movie Gram. First of all, thank you so much. I cried, I laughed, I felt a lot of emotions yesterday during the press screening. And I turned to my editor on the ending titles and I said it's not a war story, it's a love story. And my question is, two questions. First, what were the main turning points for you, Sean, as you met Vladimir, as you met more and more Ukrainian people, when your documentary turned from study of this person towards actually love confession to the country? I would say I felt it like that. And the second question, now you have lots of friends, lots of acquaintances in Ukraine, and you're sort of you're a person from another world a little bit, but now you are connected to them. How does it feel for you, in everyday life? Do you follow, the bombing schedules, the blackouts, news, etc.? And do you have sometimes a thought, maybe if I were not there, I wouldn't care so much, maybe it might be better, or it's vice versa?
The president speaks in the film to this issue in terms of Ukrainians seeing the real world and not a fairy tale. I think that we can walk and chew gum at the same time by following the philosophy of our Ukrainian friends, both in leadership and the civilians that we've known, all of whom are determined not to survive, but to flourish during this time. I think yes, it's become extremely personal. When it's right in the beginning, it was very clear that from the 24th, that the number one targets were the president and his family, and of course it was an overwhelming concern that this man who had just shown me the face of courage, representative in his face of the faces of all Ukrainians, that we may not see him again. That this, so yes, I think every person, I'd certainly like to apply that daily concern to everywhere in my life, and not forget that life is fragile, and the people we love and the dreams we have should be pursued vigorously as long as we're here.
We have several more questions. Please be short. I would like to have a short intermission because your questions, of course, are focused on the two filmmakers, but I would like to also give Lauren and Danny a chance, and of course Billy as a producer, to comment on the process. Who brought in who, and what were the challenges in working on this film for you, please?
We had started the Zelensky documentary that in 2019 that was more of just a human interest study of this, comedic actor turned president. Sergei Beskolov, another producer, and I, during COVID, we kind of lost the funding, lost everything, lost the ability to travel. Sean and I had been talking, and Sean was very intrigued, even at this point, with who Zelensky was. As a man who has kind of stepped into the fray. And then Sean and I brought in Aaron, and Aaron brought in fifth season in Vice, and then we were off and running.
I guess for us, Lauren and I had just done a production with Aaron, Co-Crusaders, on the Jehovah's Witnesses, and Aaron gave me a call one day and he said, "Look, we're working on this new thing. Could you come up to Malibu and meet Sean Penn with me, because we're getting into this world of Zelensky and we don't really know what to think of the guy, but we think there may be something very interesting here." And Lauren and I had just started producing a lot in partnership with Vice World News, which was Vice's news division, and I think the general feeling between all of us was that between what these guys were interested in investigating and what the resources and abilities of our news division were able to bring us in terms of security and fixers and access and being able to shoot on the fly on the ground in difficult places, we said, hey, feels like there's a really interesting opportunity here to all work together and explore this.
Lauren, do you want to ask something?
Yeah, I think that first meeting, what was so interesting to us was the way that Sean, of course, was thinking about the president, who he was as an artist and who he was as a leader. But it was also, we were also very interested to explore the people of Ukraine and understand their story better. And I think that that's something that, as our story changed, and it changed quite a bit, I think that heart that Aaron and Sean and everybody here brought to our story allowed us to follow it as it changed in the way that it did.
Your question.
Hello, Horas Kiribayev, Esquire, Kazakhstan. I have a question for Sean Penn and Aaron Kaufman. During the movie, you said several times that your goal is to remind the world, particularly the US, about Ukraine and the problem it faces today. And now we see that in the movie, with the movie. My question is, what are your plans in terms of distribution of the movie in the US? Are you planning to show it in the cinemas or on the streaming platforms? And for Aaron, what are the plans after this documentary to have any next steps in your mind? Thank you.
Yeah, I think now, because we preserved the film and had been working on it, and so right up until just before this festival, we will now be looking at distribution buyers. In an ideal world, it's fast and furious. Some of you may know Evgeny Afanushky's films Winter on Fire and Freedom on Fire. We are an extended family altogether of supporting each other's films to get the various perspectives out. So I know he too has hit the market, and we see if the kind of broad distributors that we feel that it's important to get to eyes all over the world, and particularly in the United States, if they've got the guts of, for example, Vice, that we had that one meeting and they just said yes. So I'd like to think that when we leave this room, some buyers are going to just say yes, but we haven't had that conversation.
My name is Ewelina Wittenberg. I'm a news correspondent from Poland. The first question is for Aaron Kaufman and Sean Penn. Do you believe that this movie could encourage more people to support Ukrainians in their fight for freedom? Do you think that superpower could have influence on Americans' attitude to war? And the second one for Sean Penn. I'm a journalist from Poland, so I'm really curious, how did you recall your visit to Poland in terms of helping the Ukrainian people? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do the Poland part and the other part to Aaron. So, from the American experience, observing this, and of course I was very quickly wearing two hats in Ukraine, because I have the documentary, but I also have my organization core working, and I was sometimes confused going back and forth which effort I was there to focus on principally. But in working in Poland and with the Polish people, and seeing the way in which the doors of homes were opened and hearts offered, this has been one of the most significantly positively supported relationships, in the crisis of refugee absorption that I've ever seen. But these things can't go on forever, and so we international community, the Ukrainian government, looking for solutions, particularly in shelter, being able to allow families to reconnect in safe places.
As far as the film being kind of an entryway into the conversation, I think that was always on our mind. We looked at the coverage in the U.S., saw that it was very shallow. A lot of times it's about should America be supporting Ukraine or not? Should we give them more money or not? And that's the conversation back and forth. And then you add in talking heads yelling at each other about that. They never really go deeper to go, well, what's really behind this? What is this? We ask a lot of people that don't understand really what the conflict is about. They'll refer to this as a civil war or something else that's outside of actually what is behind this invasion. So I think getting people to a base level of understanding of why this has happened, what the details are around it, I think would be helpful for them to understand what helping or not helping Ukraine really means.
Hello, Irina Kunchik from Bulgaria, Novi News TV. Mr. Penn, I would like to ask you, what is the superpower of Ukrainian people? What is the superpower of Zelensky? What is your superpower? And if you have the possibility to speak with Putin eyes in eyes, what do you want to say to him? Thank you.
Again, I find myself no interest in talking to Mr. Putin at all. A day will come where none of these conflicts end in war. They end in talking. It's going to have to happen. It's going to have to happen with very strong demonstrations of the existing Ukrainian demand for freedom and sovereignty in their territories. Once the architecture is in place for that, perhaps there'll be a brief discussion with the war criminal to whom you refer. In the meantime, I'm more concerned with, it's a very odd time when what the most significant humanitarian response that can happen right now is the delivery and supply of long-range precision missiles to a country under invasion, a country that owns all of the dreams and aspirations that, as I've said in the film, that we all share, that all movies share. Movies, about the better us, and we find that in Ukraine. It's kind of like, how did it happen? It was Liverpool, England, the Beatles came from, and it was a great communicator to the world's heart. And now what it is, it's the Ukrainian embrace and courage. I think Ukraine is the world's Beatles right now. And we should, just keep playing that record until they get their V-Day and go have some abortion.
Mr. Ben, Paulo Portugal, Insider.pt. There was some news before the festival that Mr. Zelensky would be present here somehow. I wonder if you have spoken to him, if he has seen the film, and what is his, what does he think about it? And also, very briefly, if you could address your role as you play in the front line. I mean, it's reality between what you do as an actor, which is fiction. How do you see that, the role that you play? How does it mean to you in your career?
Thank you. It was very important to us that the president see the movie and that he see it before the rest of the world saw it. So we went back this past week and went to Kyiv this past week and spent about a week there and showed the president the film. And then, what was the second part of that question? Sorry.
Being in the front line and between reality and what you do, which is fiction.
Being in the front line is just be in the company of the actual human beings who represent that thing we call the cutting edge of freedom, and none of them, it is none of their preference that they represented with weapons of violence, but they've not been given a choice, and so it was, any chance to be in the company of heroes, I'll take it.
We have a question from there.
Good morning, my name is Valentina Vignoli and I'm from the Italian film magazine Sentieri Selvaggi. Congratulations on your documentary. The film ends with a scene from the TV series where Zelensky played the president of Ukraine. I was wondering if you could comment on this thin line between fiction and reality and how TV series today are shaping our world. Thank you.
Well, first, I think the adoption of documentary has changed things a lot. I think people are enjoying it and consuming it in much bigger numbers than ever before. And I think that is having an effect on what narrative series are about, because people are used to more things that they perceive as real. So I think it's harder to make something in a narrative that doesn't have some kind of authenticity. But you definitely see the move towards people consuming, whether it's unscripted investigations or documentaries or docuseries. So I think the marketplace has changed, and it's pretty obvious that things like this are what people are craving to watch.
Hello, Lazar Krismo from Derek Radio from Bulgaria. I have a question for Mr. Penn. Do you really believe that once people who think that the Russian invasion in Ukraine from Russia was justified, do you think once they get to see the documentary, that they will change their opinion and that they will have a different view of the war. Thank you.
Of course, we would like to think so. It's difficult for me to imagine that reasonable people can see what is already clear and have any other thought, but that it is a criminal invasion. I think for us, from the very beginning, because we were such, newborns to an understanding of Ukraine and our key subject, President Zelensky, that we always had, we always wanted to be mindful of when we started to see something a person we wanted to hear from. We wanted to make sure we gave context to audience who largely don't have the context, and to do it in a very available way so that it's kind of like, the idiot's guide to understanding why the world needs to support these people at this time.
Hello, I'm Marcus from Berlin, freelance journalist. I have a question two short questions to some fan. First, what's the meaning of your hat? One can read killer. And the second question would be, did you ever thought about becoming a politician by yourself? I mean, there are many Hollywood stars who became politicians. Thank you.
Well, and with due respect to those who don't embody this, I remember the Irish playwright Brendan Behan being asked the same question. He said, I could never be a politician because I've only got but one face. I don't remember the other part. Oh, the hat. Oh. Anybody who gets a chance to be on the North Shore of Hawaii, this is the best taco. The best.
We hope you will bring Zelensky there.
Hi, good morning. First of all, Lisa Ferrari. First of all, congratulations to all of you for this film. Sean, as you know, in the past year, the international film community has shown a lot of support for the Ukrainian industry, for the Ukrainian war effort. But many American, European companies are still doing business. They're releasing films in Russia. How do you feel about that in general? How do you feel about your film specifically being released there and being shown to Russian audiences?
Well, I think we have to start with what's close. The leadership, the organizers of the Berlinale did something that I've never seen done in an issue of without an enormous amount of political pressure, and excused all those who represented as buyers or sellers at this festival from attending. I think that the President spoke extremely well about the way in which we should view, how I would agree we should view the balance of art and a place for, whether it be anything financed by a Russian entity, any athlete traveling to a propaganda when it comes to the Olympics. I think we have to make a really strong, clear decision and stop debating this idea of whether it be a debate about art or sport. Now, on the same night the President talked, there was a formidable presentation by one of the main jurors, the French-Iranian actress, and speaking for that which is not Iranian finance, but is which I think she referred to, the necessity of art as oxygen. So we have to find ways to support artists, of course, all over the world. Right now, there is no room for anything that involves Ruble One. And we would hope that increasingly we've seen that the German government has lately been, I think, a little clearer-minded and beginning to move support to Ukraine. So, it's all of our intention in every changing day As I said earlier today, we should all be supporting the supply of long-range precision weapons. That's a key priority for the Ukrainians.
Hello, Barbara Breuer from the German newspaper Oder Zeitung. I would like to know, you got to know President Zelensky on a very personal level, I guess. We all know him just from TV and from his speeches. What is the character trait you love most about him? And what is it you don't like?
I don't like a creepy little bully threatening him in his country. I do like that there's no threat that scares Zelensky or the Ukrainians. I think we all shared on the 24th, because we had been with him, in fact met him for the first time face to face. There had been Zooms during the COVID period. But the first time we met face to face, I had said to him much earlier, I don't want you to answer us about whether you're going to be open to us and give us access until you meet us face to face, and we won't bring cameras. So our first meeting was on the 23rd. He decided, for his own reasons, I guess, his excellent discernment and trusting people, that he would see us on the next day, and we'd bring our little camera. And then we went back to the hotel, and that night the missiles started coming in. And what had been a head of state wearing a proper suit in a proper office, and the next time we saw him, he was in cameras and his country was at war, and he had already embodied, there was a sense, a palpable sense. He said in the film that, and he couldn't have seen this coming, that he was born for this moment. And the conviction, I had been told by some friends in the United States government about the offer of the Blackhawks coming in with a special operator team to evacuate him. And I knew before his famous answer, it was very clear to us within a couple of moments he wasn't going anywhere. And so it was a very moving way to start to get to know somebody, and that affection only built over time. Speaking from my side, I think that aside from meeting my children at their birth, the highlight of meeting and sensing a great human heart of courage was that day with that man.
I have to wrap up with one last question.
Hi, Anna Cho with DW News. Nice to have you all here with Superpower. I have two short questions for Jean-Pen and Aaron Kaufman. So you talked to so many people over the course of filming that movie. Is there a conversation with a person other than President Zelensky that stuck to your mind that you couldn't forget? That's one question. And the other is, what is your single biggest learning from filming that movie? Thank you.
Yeah, we had a lot of, we researched quite a bit, and there are a lot of interviews that never made it into the film. But what really was interesting is there was a guy in the movie named Alex Frischberg, who was an attorney, and he's not a political commentator. He's a smart guy, and we really got a feel from him what the appeal of Zelensky was from the general public of Ukraine. Because as you see in the movie, the intelligentsia would tell you, that they were not necessarily behind him initially. But when we got to Alex, that's when we started to realize, he was able to explain to us what was so attractive about not just Zelensky, but the whole idea of Zelensky. This was a shiny person who didn't feel like he was part of the orthodoxy of the government up until that point. He saw them as fresh. He was looking at a new Ukraine, and that's something we saw a lot as well, where people in Ukraine were not thinking of themselves as a former Soviet republic, they were thinking of themselves as Italy or France or part of the EU. We got that from him as well. So that was the first interview that we had that really gave us an idea of Zelensky as a person, but also that promise that is why he runs so decisively.
And the only thing I would add is that the slogan of the Ukrainian railroad is iron and soft. So they'll fight like iron, but they are going to maintain that humanity, that soft humanity. What we see with is we have an interview with the governor of the central bank where he is talking about hate. And of course, the presumption from outside, that which we're all taught to seek forgiveness, was not in his heart. And he says it clearly. He hates the Russians, all of them. But that it is his job to hate them so that his children don't have to inherit hate. And I thought, well, far be it from me to say, you got to practice forgiveness. Right now, if that's the state of mind they need, they're going to do it. But within the broader human heart, they are still maintaining their art, their culture. There's a gentleness to people that you come across, be it on the front lines, line of contact, or safe and sound in a hotel in Kyiv or Lviv. It's across the board. There's something in all this terror. There's something very magical going on, and we shouldn't miss it. We shouldn't miss it. We're going to all want to be on the right side of history on this. Long-range precision weapons.
I said 3 to last, and we have a very last question.
Thank you very much. Giulia Bussotti, Italian journalist. Mr. Pan, you have been testimony of bad things, horrible scenes, I guess. How did this experience change you, if it did? And also, what struck you most with you have met so many Ukrainians. What is that struck you most with talking with these people? And there is this scene, for instance, I was very shocked when you get very close to the front line. Did you sense any fear? Were you scared? Was it a dangerous moment for you? Thank you.
So, I think if somebody barred all the doors to this room closed, packed us together, and just gave us just enough for each to have a level of nutrition that will keep us from falling ill, that we can all imagine a way in which that turns into chaos, and we can also imagine on the better side the way it turns into community. We know from anthropologists that community is the answer to longevity. The Ukrainians are at the epicenter of community of care. And so what I take back is that growing up in the United States, we have, and this won't be news to you, we are born with a misguided sense of exceptionalism, which is not to say that there isn't a lot of things that are exceptional about the country, but it can allow us to get to minimalize or to normalize something less than community, something less than care, kindness. And at the heart of their frontline battle is that they are, it's one of the big differences between what so many of the Russian forces and certainly the Wagner forces are doing with an attitude toward atrocity. These people are doing what they have to do simply because they love their country and they love each other. And so the lesson is simple. We should all honor them by doing our best to follow it. And it will be an imperfect road, but I think that's the biggest takeaway. I'll say in terms of the question about danger, it's become a question of finding it's less and less important to share my views on it. We get on an airplane, and if we don't know how to fly the plane, we're not going to panic whether it's going to go down or not. Just take the flight.
Thank you so much for the superpower in the film, the superpower in the discussion, and please follow the examples that you were given with this film and with Aaron Kaufman's and Sean Penn's engagement and determinism. Spread it, listen to Ukrainian voices, watch our Ukrainian films in the program, and good luck to Superpower and the Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine.
Ja, kom. Ja. Das geht. Die ganze Woche hier.
Aber nein, das soll nicht. Alle gemacht. Ja, das sehe ich genau immer nur Bilder, wo ich mir jetzt denke, eins irgendwas ist nicht schöner. Ich weiß nicht, was sie vom Teppich nehmen.
Huh? Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.